Aita, drama, secrets, confessions. Welcome to Tale Trove Reddit.
I never thought that, right in the middle of a family party, my sister would stand in front of everyone and scream in my face. "Get out of that house. It's mine now." The music stopped. Every single pair of eyes turned toward me. Can you imagine what it feels like to have everything ripped away from you, in your own home? Painful, humiliating, and more than that. I was ready to turn that party into a battlefield. Because what they didn't know is that I had a secret powerful enough to silence them all. If you want to know what happened next, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because what's coming is even crazier. It didn't start at that party. It started long before that, right inside the very house my parents left behind. A house that wasn't just a place to live, but a vault of memories, childhood, and scars that never healed. Since I was little, I got used to being compared to my sister. She was always praised as the smart one, the beautiful one, the successful one. And me. I was just the shadow, the leftover in my own family. Have you ever felt invisible in the very home where you grew up? But when my parents passed away, everything changed. I was the only one left to take care of that house. Every corner, every brick, carried my sweat and my tears. And my sister. She vanished, only showing up sometimes to flaunt her luxury goods and that condescending stare. Can you believe there are people willing to sell out their own family, just for the word ownership? That house was supposed to hold us together, but instead it became a ticking time bomb. Everyone wanted a piece. Everyone thought they deserved it. But there was one truth no one dared to admit. In my family, power never came from love, it came from rivalry. And that party. It was nothing less than a lit match tossed into a barrel of gasoline. So let me ask you, who do you think burned first? Me or her? If you think my sister stopped at just those condescending looks, you're dead wrong. She turned every single family gathering into her own stage. And on that stage, she was always the star while I was cast as nothing more than background noise. Once, right in the middle of dinner, she smirked and said, "If it weren't for me, you'd probably still be hauling crates at the market." The whole table burst out laughing, and I sat there in silence, choking back the bitterness. Have you ever been turned into a punchline by your own family? But it wasn't just words. She worked behind the scenes to convince our relatives that I was nothing more than a freeloader living off the house our parents left behind. And they believed it. Or at least pretended to. I saw their suspicious glances, heard the whispers that followed me like shadows. That's when I realized I wasn't just up against her. I was up against an entire network standing in her corner. And as time passed, she grew bolder. Quietly reaching out to lawyers, finding loopholes, spinning stories about fairness and inheritance rights. All of it building toward one massive strike. Do you know what it feels like to live in a house? Well, every day it slips through your fingers like sand you can't hold on to. I stayed silent. Not because I was weak, but because I knew, if I wanted to win, I had to let her reveal her true face on her own. Every act has its final curtain. And when that curtain finally drops, the audience won't clap for a fake performance anymore. So tell me, who do you think will be unmasked first? Me. Or her? It should have been a reunion. Music, laughter, the clink of glasses. Everything seemed perfect. But I knew that calm was just a thin veil before the fire ignited. My sister walked in, her dress glittering, a haughty smile like the whole room existed to serve her. From the very first look, I felt that something was off. Have you ever looked at a family member and just knew they were about to do something awful? She waited until everyone raised their glasses, then suddenly stood up. Her voice cut through the music. "I have an announcement. From today on, that house is mine. And you," she pointed at me, "get out of it right now." The room exploded. Some people were stunned, some whispered, a few laughed thinking it was a joke. But her eyes were cold as steel, not a flicker of doubt. This wasn't a joke. This was the fatal strike she'd been plotting for a long time. I stood there, motionless. My heart pounded not from fear, but because I realized this moment was the eruption of all the conflicts bottled up over the years. Can you believe someone could turn a family party into a public courtroom and try you in front of everyone? But she forgot one thing. When you choose to attack someone in the spotlight, you also make yourself the clearest target. And I was ready. Every pair of eyes in the room was fixed on me. Some were waiting for me to break down in tears, some waiting for me to run away, and a few even hoping I would collapse right in front of them. But I did none of those things. I stood still, looked my sister straight in the eye, and smiled. A smile that made her flinch for a moment. Have you ever seen someone who thought they had won start to tremble just because their opponent went silent? I could hear my heart pounding, not from fear, but from anger. Anger for all the years I had swallowed my pride, anger because she thought she could stomp me into the mud with no one to stand up for me. I wanted to scream, to rush forward, to expose all her dirty tricks right then and there. But instead, I chose to wait. Because I knew I had a card in my hand that had never been revealed. And if I flipped it right now, the party wouldn't be a party anymore. It would turn into an unending nightmare for her. So I said only one sentence, short enough to make the whole room fall silent. Are you sure? Can you imagine the atmosphere in that moment? A heavy silence, like the whole world holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. And I promise you, what's coming next is 100 times more dramatic. Don't miss it. Hit that subscribe button right now, because this story has only just begun. As the whole room held its breath, someone suddenly grabbed my arm from behind. It was Uncle, the one I had always assumed sided with my sister. He leaned close to my ear and whispered something that gave me goosebumps. Don't worry. I know everything your sister has done. What do you think about that? Someone who'd been silent all this time suddenly revealing a secret at the tensest moment. I turned to look, and his eyes were no longer the familiar indifference. They were the eyes of someone holding the truth. And that truth, if exposed, would be enough to burn down the whole play my sister had been staging. He told me quickly, his voice shaking but firm. Your sister paid a lawyer to forge papers. There are witnesses. One wrong move and the entire scheme will collapse. In that instant I felt stunned and a little amused. The person the family praised, the one who stood in front of dozens of eyes, to try to kick me out of the house, turned out to be running a dirty con. Can you imagine watching someone's wall of arrogance crack right before your eyes? I swallowed a laugh, lifted my head, and looked straight at my sister. And her. She still stood there, proud, convinced she had won. But she had no idea. The first secret was already leaking. And once that underground stream starts to run, nothing can stop the flood. That night, after the party, I couldn't sleep. My uncle's words kept ringing in my head like an alarm. If the papers were really forged, then my sister had gone too far. And I knew, to fight back, I needed evidence. I started digging through every drawer, every box of my parents' documents. All papers, the will, notarized copies. It was all there. And then I found something strange. The original showed signs of tampering. The ink was faded in places, the handwriting slightly off, as if someone had tried to copy it. Can you believe it, right in this house, someone had the nerve to forge the will? I took the papers to a friend who works in the legal field. He flipped through them, then furrowed his brow. Something's not right. This signature. It doesn't fully match. My heart was half afraid, half ignited. If this was true, she hadn't just broken the law. She had buried the reputation she'd built for years. Have you ever felt like screaming, but knew you had to hold back and wait for the right moment to unleash everything? I decided not to rush. I needed more. Witnesses, the original copies, details she couldn't deny. And then, digging deeper, I found an old letter my father had written but never sent. In the letter, one line made my skin crawl. If any of my children try to seize what's not theirs, they will lose everything. The day of the family meeting finally arrived. My sister walked in with her head held high, as if victory was already in her grasp. The whole family looked at me with pity, convinced I was about to be thrown out of the very house my parents had left behind. But they didn't know. Tucked inside my pocket was my father's letter. I stood up and slowly placed a stack of documents on the table. Are you sure you're the rightful owner of this house? I asked, my voice calm, almost unnervingly so. She smirked and shot back one word. Of course. And that was the moment I revealed the evidence. Not just the original will. Not just the forged signatures. But also my father's handwritten letter. In it, he had left one secret clause. If either of us ever tried to seize the inheritance through deceit, that person would lose all rights to it. The room went silent. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd. My sister's eyes shifted, panic flooding in where arrogance once stood. Can you imagine watching someone who thought they held victory in their hands fall straight from the mountaintop into the abyss? I raised my head, looked straight at her, and said, you don't just lose this house. You've destroyed every last right you had. No one clapped. But that silence, that heavy, undeniable silence, was the loudest applause I could ever receive. And in that moment, I knew. The board had been completely flipped. The room froze the moment I placed my father's letter on the table. Every pair of eyes turned to my sister. The same woman who once screamed at me to get out of this house was now trembling, her face pale as paper. No. No way. She stammered, trying to snatch the stack of papers from my hand. But everyone had already seen it all. Every trace of forgery, every deceitful trick had been exposed. An uncle shot at his feet, his voice filled with anger. You dare tarnish our parents' legacy out of sheer greed. Another relative shook their head in disappointment. We trusted you. And yet, the family's eyes turned into invisible blades, piercing through the arrogant mask she once wore. Have you ever seen someone fall from the very peak of power straight into the depths of humiliation in mere seconds? She screamed, denying everything, but her voice cracked, stripped of any weight. I didn't need to say another word. The truth had spoken for me. And that moment when she crumbled in front of everyone was the fairest sentence she could ever receive. I turned my back and walked away, leaving behind the murmurs, the stares laced with both pity and admiration. Inside, only one thought echoed in my mind. You wanted to throw me out of this house. I'm sorry. You just dug your own grave. If you believe this moment was worth it, hit that subscribe button right now. Because there are so many family stories that may seem ordinary, yet hide secrets chilling enough to make you shiver. After everything, I still remained in that house. But it would never be the same again. Every wall, every window carried the scars of a family battle I would never forget. They say blood is thicker than water, that family can turn on each other. But the truth is far harsher. Sometimes, family is the very place where the deepest wounds are dealt. Have you ever thought your own flesh and blood would be willing to betray you for a house, a piece of paper, a taste of power? That day, my sister lost everything. Not just her inheritance, but trust, honor, and the proud mask she had worn for years. As for me, I never needed a glorious victory. All I wanted was for the truth to come to light, and for justice to stand on my side. But you know what was the most terrifying part? When the curtain finally fell, the house didn't echo with applause. It sank into a chilling silence. A silence that proved the cracks in this family would never be mended. I walked out of the room without looking back. Only one thought kept ringing in my mind. You wanted to turn that party into a trial against me. But in the end, you were the one condemned. And that was the moment I understood. Some battles don't require shouting to win. Only silence, and the truth itself, to speak.